Back to the game, the Ravens lost Lamar Jackson in the first half with a back injury. John Harbaugh he said it was a bruise, and, if he would have been able to come back, they would have put him back on the field. Tyler Huntley played very well. He
played good, right.
Played very well. I mean, up until the Patriots came out of their coma last night, I'm thinking, good Lord, the Patriots, supposedly one of the best teams in the league, they can't get anything going against Tyler Huntley, who was thrust into action. They think that this is the moment where the injury occurred because he exited not long after that, something in the back there. But he's had an assortment of injuries this year. He missed more than a month with a hamstring, and then when he came back, it was every week he would miss practice for something else. We had knee, we had ankle, we had foot. This past week he had an illness on Wednesday and missed practice. And the Ravens are going to, at this point, miss the postseason, and you just wonder what that is going to be. We spent so much time talking about Mike Tomlin, 19 years in Pittsburgh. Ben Roethlisberger came out and said, maybe it's time for a change for both sides. I don't know. Are we waiting for Joe Flacco to come out and say maybe it's time for a change for both sides in Baltimore? I'm trying to think apples to apples. Who would be the one to say it? But for whatever reason, that conversation doesn't occur in Baltimore, although I would submit that there have been more occasions in which weird stuff went on behind the scenes that could have aligned to Harbaugh leaving. Far more in Baltimore than it has in Pittsburgh with Mike Tomlin. Like Mike Tomlin, it's all just been talk and a group of fans that want to fire him if they lose 2 or 3 in a row. In Baltimore, there have been a couple of off seasons where once we start into it, there's kind of a like, is this it? Is this the time? And I feel like this is going to be another one of those where we watch and we wait and we wonder, is John Harbaugh, going to be going somewhere else? And frankly, if Jim hadn't coached at Michigan, I'd be thinking maybe John's in play. I can't imagine John wanting to go to Michigan after his brother won a national championship there. And I feel like Michigan right now needs to just get past all things Harbaugh and everything associated with it, even though John has no responsibility directly or indirectly for all the different things that have happened. It's just they need to turn the page.
Yeah, right.
They need to turn the page. But I think John Harbaugh would be in play elsewhere. I mean, wouldn't you love to have him as coach of the Giants?
Definitely.
You've been trying to get Tomlin.
Right.
I don't think that's going to work out for you.
I know, right.
Based on the game we're going to talk about next. Would you want John Harbaugh?
Definitely. I mean, that would be what we'd want as a Giant fan to me, is just a guy that's been there, done that, get us back going in the right direction again, and bring the organization together, get the fan base believing in a coach once again. That's where I think, they need somebody that's been there, done that. He would fit that mold. So I'm with you there. And I'm with you, and I think the whole league is. I think a lot of people wonder what's going to happen in Baltimore, right? It feels like it could be the end of the shelf life of this football team, the end of the era here a little bit, where they might have to recalibrate, might have to make some major turnover with their football team in the offseason. So that's going to be interesting to see what happens there. And then I think you're right with all the stuff of, hey, this team was really good. People kind of looked at them to be in the Super Bowl window for like the last 4 years. They could not get there. And then I think when you couple that with end of the game, maybe some mismanagement questions, blowing leads, all that. And then what we saw again last night, which is what we see in a lot of big games, to your point. Their biggest players, their stars, seem to make the biggest mistakes in the biggest moments. And that is something that I know behind the scenes has been talked about. And I know I've had people in that organization and players say, yes, they're not as hard on the stars at times as they are everybody else there. And you saw last night, whether it was Zay Flowers' interception or Mark Andrews fumbling and dropping balls last year in the divisional playoff game, or Derrick Henry fumbling earlier in this one, it's just been too many of those moments. And at some point, people start to look at the head coach, and that's where you wonder where it goes, right?
Well, and one of the other factors, too, and look, we want to be grounded in reality, but we're allowed to take a look at the current circumstances, the circumstances that have lingered in Baltimore for multiple years, and ask questions. And it's hard to look at the Ravens over the past several years and not ask the question, what's the deal? What is the deal? What's the deal with the Ravens and Lamar Jackson? What's the deal with John Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson? There's just been this vague cloud of disconnect between Jackson and Harbaugh and the team, and it goes back to late season injuries, and there was just enough noise to make people think he's not playing because he doesn't have his contract. And
Right.
I fully support a guy protecting himself. You don't have financial security, but I didn't feel like there was a fulsome support from the team when Lamar was injured.
Well,
and
I
not
think
playing
also
late
they
in
were a
those
little bit
seasons.
like Lamar's now doing all the things that a franchise
Right.
quarterback does too. I think that goes a little bit of both ways.
But I
You're
know,
right.
but you're saying,
right.
but that adds to
You're
this cloud.
It does,
right?
right.
I'm not saying who's right or wrong.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just saying, there wasn't this, hey, Lamar's injured and Lamar can't play, and stop asking about it. There was just enough fuel that they were throwing onto that very small fire to keep it going, and there was a lot of criticism, a lot of questions. And look, this gets back to Lamar Jackson not having an agent. They've had issues with trying to negotiate with him. Those were well documented in the 61-page collusion agreement.
Taking care of himself,
Right.
and doing that, and, right?
And-
We've talked about that too. He's been sick a ton the last few years. If you look at it, missing practice. I think there's a part of diet, workout, maybe just being a little more detailed in his week-to-week approach there. That I know in Baltimore they wish he didn't show up for a lot of OTAs again this year. And
He's given up $750,000 each of the last 2 years. $1.5 million given up by not showing up for the requisite number of offseason
He's the
workouts.
man. I get it. But like Mahomes and Josh Allen are there. I mean, I know that. Drake May was there at OTAs this year. And that's where, I love Lamar, but this is where I would butt heads with him to go, that's not the right approach, just showing up once every now and then. Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, they didn't go, hey, I'll just show up 2 weeks, guys, and miss 5 or 6 practices and do that. And that's the standard he wants to be held to. And he should be, because he's one of the greatest quarterbacks we've ever seen. But we're watching him right now in a lull and in what he's playing. And you have to sit here right now in Lamar Jackson a little bit and go, wait, have we seen the best of Lamar Jackson as far as we're on the decline physically? Chris Collinsworth talked about it last night. I broke it down on my podcast 2 weeks ago where, yes, he hadn't been throwing the ball well. He's thrown the ball pretty well the last 2 weeks, so that's been better. But there's no, escaping that when you watch film of the Baltimore Ravens and some of the breakdowns I did, and you listen to Chris Collinsworth last night, Lamar Jackson's not as fast. He's not the same guy.
It
now,
was obvious
he's been
the night
banged up.
he came back. The night he came back from
Right.
the hamstring injury, it was obvious against the Dolphins. He was not anywhere close to high gear, and he wasn't there until the Ravens game. The Bengals game. Excuse me. Last week, that was the first time it was like, hey, he's back
It
to
looked
his
a
old
little
self.
bit, but their tracking numbers for his speed and all that, they're way down. So he's a banged up guy. We don't know where Baltimore's going with this. I know you have the thought, and I don't think it's crazy, that he'd love to go back to South Florida. And I think there's a lot of people that think Lamar would like to make his way back that way.
Good luck with that with $99 million in
there's
cap
no way
dollars
that's
tied
happening.
to 2 of the
But
next
to your
2
point,
years.
it just all seems weird.
Right.
You're right about that, and it seems like the Baltimore Ravens could be in flux here. And yeah, I don't expect them to be in the playoffs because I think the Steelers will win one of these two.
And his contract is very simple. He's got 2 more years, and then it will be, as a practical matter, impossible for the Ravens to franchise tag him in 2028.
Right.
Which isn't all that long away, but by then he'll be 10 years in. He'll be in his 30s. Father Time will always win. And when you're a quarterback who relies upon mobility, agility, acceleration, and speed, the question becomes how deep into your 30s will it last? And at what point do you do the 2 Steves pivot, the Steve McNair, Steve Young pivot away from running and focus on being a passer from the pocket and nothing else? And, that's something that's got to begin. I'm not criticizing anyone. I'm not trying to start trouble. I'm just paying attention to what's in front of our eyes. And what has been there for multiple years has been a sense of awkwardness between the Ravens and Lamar Jackson. And you can't help but wonder if you would sit him down and you would know that he's going to be frank and candid, not that he would have an obligation to be, what would he say about whether or not he wants to be there? And you have to wonder if this is just me talking, as it usually is, as opposed to other things. But I could belch the alphabet, I guess. I could try, but I'll go with talking. The Ravens may be at the point where it would be kind of a relief to them too. I don't know, because you got to find somebody else. But when Snoop Huntley comes in and runs the offense and you almost win the game, I'm not saying that Snoop Huntley is anywhere close to being as good as Lamar Jackson, two-time NFL MVP, guy I voted for last year over Josh Allen to be the MVP. I'm just looking at this saying this is weird. And I always put myself in the shoes of a fan of a team, and I ask the question, what would I be concerned about? And if I'm a Ravens fan, I'm just concerned about this weird fog that exists between Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. And I know some Ravens fans are going to get upset about that because they don't want to face that. They don't want to ask that question. They want to delude themselves. Well, you're deluding yourselves right into no playoff appearance this year. Something's off, and something's been off.
Well, there's a fog around all of it. I think that's to your point. It's all of it. It's whether it was Lamar's injuries 2 years ago, and yeah, they did go to the playoffs with Tyler Huntley, and we're on the 1 yard line, about to go up 2 touchdowns on the Cincinnati Bengals, and fumbled the quarterback sneak, and they returned a 99-yard touchdown. But just been a fog everywhere. Not getting to the promised land. Lamar Jackson, one of the greatest talents we've ever seen, not getting to a Super Bowl yet. Big game moments, blowing leads, big players fumbling in the biggest moments. The coach having the MO of we can't manage a game down the stretch and hold on to a lead, whether that's fair or not. I hear you. We could talk about it, but that's just what's perceived out there, and perception becomes reality. And so I think you couple all of that and then an underwhelming year this year where it looks like you're not even going to make the playoffs. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of questions in Baltimore.
All right, football historian, who returned the ball 98 yards for the touchdown that night?
Oh, that was Sam Hubbard, wasn't it?
Yeah, well done. Who caused the fumble?
He jumped over the top. I'm going to say Jermaine Pratt.
Logan Wilson.
Yeah, one of those middle linebackers.
That's all right. That was hard to do.
But you get into that. We talked about all that stuff, and then the defense, right? The defense can't make any big stops and big moments, it feels like. That's what the Ravens were known for with that forever, with Ed Reed and Ray Lewis. That's not one of their MOs anymore. So, yeah, it feels like the shelf life of this Baltimore Ravens team is about done, and we're watching a new shelf being built with the New England Patriots, and good win for them, not making it 2 in a row. And they certainly seem like they're going to be a force in the AFC playoffs.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.